I don't do a very good job planning these videos. Hi. No, that's weird. I'm off on a bike trip. Nope, that's not it. So our last few videos have featured both Taryn and I in the Jeep, or our Alaska trip had me on the bike and Taryn in the Jeep, but they've had one thing in common, and that's we always go on these adventures together. This week I got a solo adventure planned, and I am leaving either Friday or Saturday, depending on how difficult it is to get this tire on. The reason for this adventure is I had the privilege of serving the Northwest Association of College and University Housing Officers, and our annual May board meeting was going to be held in Bend, Oregon. And since any excuse will do, it was a great chance to go on a bike trip. But before Hobbs could go anywhere, he needed a new pair of shoes. So I got the old tire off, and it only took 3 minutes, which means things are about to go horribly wrong, because nothing is ever this easy. So this is going way too well, because I've only been at about 8 minutes, and I got the bead broken, and nothing has gone horribly wrong. So something will go horribly wrong on the next step, which is taking the old tire off.
Right, it's hard to believe, but nothing went disastrously wrong this time. And it's on there, we're just waiting for the bead to click in, and it should happen any second. And then we got ourselves a new rear tire.
After remounting the wheel, it was time to test my handiwork on a ride. And then, absolutely nothing happened. It worked fine. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut occasionally. Tires aren't all I added to the bike since Alaska. I upgraded my tank bag to a nicer version with an electrical port. That would allow me to charge my nifty new helmet camera so I'd be able to capture the trip from the seat of my bike. It's the night before I leave for Bend, Oregon on my motorcycle, and I'm all packed up. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who I'm going to meet or what I'm going to see. I don't know if the bike's going to run properly or if there's going to be problems with it. I'm fairly confident it'll work, and whatever those problems are, I mean, that's what makes the adventure, right? It doesn't... It's not much fun if everything goes perfectly well. The real interesting stuff is when things go a little sideways on you and things get a little pear-shaped. So I'm really excited to hit the road and get going, and here's hoping for some good weather and some successful days on the highway. Of course, we're experienced adventure travelers, so we had every detail accounted for. We awoke early for a hearty breakfast under sunny skies to start my trip. Only that's entirely not true. It's just after 8 a.m. on Saturday, May 13th, I think it is. 14th, I'm not really sure what day it is. But the trip hasn't started yet. I'm just about to load the bike and go, and it's already off to a brilliant start because it's pouring rain outside. Last night we couldn't find my passport. We finally did find it, tucked away somewhere in a safe place, as they always are, and it expires in like 22 days. I really should have checked this before. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be allowed into the States or not, but some stuff on the internet is saying 6 months. But I haven't even loaded the bike yet, and the adventure is already beginning, so this is pretty exciting.
So, little update. I've been doing the Henday now for about 20 odd minutes. I'm almost at the south end of the city. So this spring, I got a great deal on a really nice riding jacket. It's got Gore-Tex, and it's guaranteed to keep you dry. I did buy the pants, because the water's just shedding off the jacket right into my... certain parts are really cold. Last year I was just uncomfortable all the time, but now I'm only half uncomfortable, and that means that I know how good it could be.
It seemed like the problems were left behind me with the storm and everything was going great. Only that's also entirely not true.
I was just driving into Red Deer, and something's up with my steering, but I don't really know what. My handlebars came loose. I know if you're not a motorcyclist, this might be hard to believe, but handlebars coming loose is a bad thing. I can continue complaining about it, or I can just fix it, so I'm going to opt to fix it. Wow, that's cool.
Soon the prairies were behind me and the Rocky Mountains loomed into view. And with them came part of Alberta's history that most drive by without a second thought.
Pretty windy here, and the wind was really kicking my butt, so I decided to take a little break. And the place I chose was right by the side of the road in what used to be part of Frank, Alberta. And I say used to be because Frank, Alberta was a town of about, I think, 600 people. And in 1903, early one morning, the mountain over here decided to fall down. And so it's the deadliest landslide in Canadian history. Over 70 people died. There were a whole bunch of people trapped in the mine. They were able to tunnel their way out. This is the kind of stuff you don't see when you fly over the mountains. You really got to drive through it to see these little bits of history, and I find it fascinating. it's hard enough carving a life out of the Rocky Mountains, especially 100 years ago. These landslides have been happening for thousands and tens of thousands and millions of years. And it just so happened that this one happened on a town and killed 70 people 115 years ago.
The people who died in the Frank slide weren't all that different from you and me. They had lives, jobs, dreams, vices and virtues, families that loved them, and my own family was getting further away with each passing mile. By a stroke of bad luck, those people had died. And the same could be true of any of us, you watching this at home or me astride my motorcycle chasing the setting sun. It was a somber reminder that we only get one chance at this thing called life, and it's far too precious to waste.
Just arrived in camp on the first day of my trip. I'm at the, I actually don't know what this place is called, but it's a provincial park. And I'm gonna get some dinner and get some shelter going. But there are worse places to spend the evening.
As is tradition, I waited till I was actually in camp until I tried setting up my tent and using my cooking equipment for the first time. Dinner was chili mac and beef, and after eating my fill, I settled in to study for a few hours before bed. Now that I had the first day's traveling done, all the kinks and problems would be behind me. Only that is entirely not true.
Morning. It's just after 7 a.m. Slept in a little bit actually. I meant to get up a bit earlier than this. But it was windy more last night. Apparently, that's quite the hairstyle, but apparently the theme for this particular trip is going to be loose nuts and bolts. Some would say you have to have a few loose nuts and bolts in order to want to travel by motorcycle, but this is actually a little bit more serious. Now my kickstand is loose, and I don't want it coming off down the highway. Time to bust out the tools before I get going this morning.
And get going, I did.
This is the US border, and if you recall, my passport's about to expire, so I'm really hoping they let me in. Gotta take off all my stuff before crossing the border.
My loving wife and family were waiting at home. I hadn't told her about my possible passport issue, so this was either going to go well or she'd be receiving a very sad telephone call. While I was traveling, Taryn held down the fort at home. Pets needed feeding, Jeeps needed maintaining, and handstands needed standing. I was enjoying the trip immensely, but certainly missed my home. The real question was if the Americans would take issue with my passport or not. Lucky for me, they didn't, and they let me in. Alas, my euphoria was short-lived. Motorcycle travel in May in the mountains means snow and rain and cold, and as I wound my way south along the panhandle of Idaho, even my warm Canadian blood felt a bit of a chill.
I haven't recorded very much video this morning because it was so cold that all my batteries froze and none of my electronics could work. I'm halfway between Coeur d'Alene and Moscow, I think. And I'm going to head south to some other place, not sure where. So I'm only about maybe 8 hours away from Bend, I think, and I got a day left to get there. So this is the trip where things just sort of fall apart. A screw rattled loose on my helmet. Thankfully it landed on my lap, so I was able to screw it back in. But that's the theme of this particular adventure, is things coming loose and needing to be fixed.
Thankfully, I was getting good at digging out my toolkit, and before long I was ripping through Idaho and into some of the most beautiful vistas in North America, working my way in and out of the valleys and hills into northern Oregon.
What a day. That was awesome. I'm in a lot later than I thought I would be, but I'm near Walla Walla, Washington. Say that 100 times fast. But I'm in Oregon, but I'm near there. That's the nearest big city. I mean, it started cold and miserable and awful, and did I mention cold and miserable? But the end of the day with the ride down into the gorge and the valley and the river, and it was amazing. And, you know, there are worse places to camp than this, I'll tell you that much. Dinner tonight. Let's see here. Chili mac pad thai. Taryn's going to be so mad that I stole the last one.
Taryn didn't actually mind me stealing the last pad thai from the pantry. Whether that comment proves to be entirely untrue depends on whether or not she knows I took it.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 3 on the road of my Oregon trip. It's just before 7 a.m. I got 500 or so kilometers to go, but everything is really wet, so I gotta wait for the sun to come up and dry everything out, including me. And then we'll get started with our day.
Soon my equipment was dry and all packed, and I was coursing across Oregon's high desert into Bend. With a few quick gas stops, I was soon rolling into Oregon State's brand new residence hall at their Cascades campus. I was excited to get to work with my Northwest Takuo friends and colleagues, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss home.
So after 3 really successful days with some amazing people here in Bend, Oregon, I'm loading up the bike to head back home again, and it's going to be 22 hours on the way home. I think I got a route planned this time.
What a great city. Great people, cool environment, absolutely awesome. Definitely want to come back here someday. But for now, there's more roads to explore, so we're going east.
Of course, I couldn't leave Oregon without getting some appropriate flair for the bike, and thanks to a recommendation from my friend Paul, I made a stop at Pilot Butte to take the views before heading down the road. And the road that awaited me was the most boring road ever.
Over for a quick cup of coffee in the little diner here. I just came through 300 kilometers of flat, empty nothing, kind of like what I saw in the high desert. It was just a lot more of it, and there's no people, there were hardly any cars. It was quite something. I'm on my way to Ontario, Oregon, and then heading up through to Kalispell, Montana. I've got about 1,000 miles to go, 1,011 according to the GPS, to get to Nordegg. So I want to put on a few hundred more kilometers before I call it a night.
I drank down 3 cups of strong coffee and said a little prayer to the motorcycle gods for better terrain. And they answered. The next several hundred miles didn't have a straight bit in it, so much so that I regretted having to camp overnight because I was having so much fun.
It's Thursday, I believe.
After a few hours of sleep, it was back on the road into a motorcyclist paradise. No traffic, twisty roads, and amazing views through the visor as far as the eye could see.
Back up another mountain range, and it's pretty chilly up here.
I would soon learn just how cold the snow piled up on either side of the Lolo Pass.
Hi, Montana.
Thankfully, the pass itself was clear, and soon I was coursing down the other side. From there, I worked my way north through the Kalispell area for the night. I pitched camp, took care of Hobbs, and drifted off to sleep with a smile on my face from a great day of riding.
It's just after 6 a.m. here, my time, or maybe this time. I'm not sure what time zone I am, to be honest with you. My boots are wet, which is really unpleasant. Turns out it's about 8.5 hours to go today. Well, here we go.
First look at Canada since I left on Sunday. Those mountains right there.
This trip would mark the last time I'd be traveling to the United States for the foreseeable future. While I love the country and I absolutely love my American friends, it was good to be home. I celebrated by taking advantage of my park pass and headed north through BC and Alberta along the Icefields Parkway. Hobbs ate up the miles, and before I knew it, I was pulling off the highway onto the Jeep trail that leads to our traditional May-long campsite at Abraham Lake. Just a few short hours later, Taryn arrived with our dogs, and we spent a wonderful weekend amongst dear friends. I covered about 6,000 kilometers before getting back home to Alberta in some amazing scenery. I love adventures, but as much as I enjoyed this trip, I always prefer to share them with my wife. Adventures like these aren't about the destination, they're about the journey, and those are memories I want to share with the ones I love most of all. Thank you for watching, and remember, any excuse will do. Until next time, we'll keep chasing our trunks.